The Deep South is home to several states, with two including Alabama and Mississippi. What's similar and different about the two? Let's compare both in the latest State Comparison Series episode. Alabama was admitted into the Union on December 14, 1819 as the 22nd state, and Mississippi was admitted into the Union on December 10, 1817 as the 19th state. Both share unique and complicated histories. Alabama's history stretches back thousands of years, with indigenous peoples such as the Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, and Chickasaw shaping the region long before European contact. Spanish explorers including Hernando de Soto arrived in the mid-1500s, followed by the French and British who vied for control of the region. After it became a state, Alabama's economy became heavily reliant on cotton plantations, which were supported by enslaved labor. This reliance led Alabama to join the Confederacy in 1861 as tensions over slavery and states' rights reached a boiling point, sparking the Civil War. After the South's defeat in 1865, Alabama, like much of the region, endured a turbulent Reconstruction period marked by political and social upheaval. The state struggled with economic difficulties and widespread racial segregation under Jim Crow laws. In the mid-20th century, Alabama became a focal point of the civil rights movement. Key events such as the Montgomery bus boycott, led by figures like Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., and the Selma to Montgomery marches helped bring national attention to the fight for racial equality. The passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act in the mid-1960s were pivotal moments in Alabama's and the nation's history. Today, Alabama's rich past is reflected in its diverse cultural heritage, historic landmarks, and its ongoing evolution from its agricultural roots to a more industrial and service-based economy. Mississippi's history is deeply rooted in the experiences of indigenous peoples such as the Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Natchez, who lived in the region for thousands of years before the Europeans arrived. Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto first explored the area in the 1540s, but it wasn't until the late 17th century that the French established settlements, eventually ceding the land to the British after the French and Indian War. In the 19th century, Mississippi's economy became synonymous with cotton, driven by the plantation system and the widespread use of enslaved labor. By the time of the Civil War, Mississippi had the highest percentage of enslaved people in the nation, leading it to become the second state to secede from the Union in 1861. The state played a significant role in the Confederacy during the Civil War, suffering great losses. Following the war, Mississippi underwent a difficult Reconstruction period marked by violence, poverty, and racial tensions as the state transitioned from a slave-based economy. The 20th century saw Mississippi at the heart of the civil rights movement. It was the site of significant events like the murder of civil rights activist Medgar Evers, the Freedom Summer voter registration drives, and the tragic killings of 3 civil rights workers in 1964. Despite efforts to suppress African Americans' rights through Jim Crow laws, these pivotal moments brought national attention and helped fuel the push for racial equality, leading to landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Today, Mississippi is known for its complex history, including its contributions to American music, particularly blues and country. The state remains largely agricultural, but has also embraced industrial and technological development, while its deep historical roots continue to influence its culture and identity. In today's State Comparison Series episode, we're going to compare Alabama and Mississippi. The video will focus on both physical and human geography. In terms of physical geography, we will review 3 main factors: the geomorphology, meteorology, and ecology, while with human geography, we will review 4 main factors: the demography, urbanization, economy, and geopolitics. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home, if you enjoy learning about both physical and human geography. Let's get started. Geomorphologically, both Alabama and Mississippi have many similarities, as both are coastal states with elevated interiors, though both have notable differences. Alabama is situated on the Gulf Coast and has around a 50-mile direct coastline with it, and multiple bays and estuaries within the area, including the Mobile Bay. Much of the lower part of Alabama is below 1,000 feet in elevation and relatively flat with some rolling hills. But further north, the elevation of the state increases as the northeast part of it is geographically in the Appalachian Mountains. Also within this area is Alabama's highest peak, Mount Chewa, at an elevation of 2,413 feet. In addition, cities such as Huntsville have eclectic landscapes of valleys, hills, and mountains. Mississippi also has a coastline with the Gulf of Mexico, which measures around 70 miles long, along with multiple estuaries and inlets. Similarly to Alabama, much of the lower half of Mississippi is low-lying with flat areas to rolling hills. Mississippi isn't geologically connected to the Appalachian Mountains and averages a lower median elevation than Alabama. Also, its highest peak is Woodhull Hill with an elevation of 806 feet, the 47th highest out of all states, surpassing neighboring Louisiana, Delaware, and Florida. The meteorology of Alabama and Mississippi are so much alike that both can be discussed together. Both states are in the southeastern United States at a somewhat low temporal latitude. This, coupled with the low elevations, allows Alabama and Mississippi to have a humid subtropical climate with mild winters and hot and humid summers. Communities situated on the Gulf Coast are on average the warmest within both states, such as Mobile, Biloxi, and Gulfport. These coastal areas are quite susceptible to tropical cyclone strikes, primarily during the late summer and early fall, and storms such as Hurricane Camille in 1969 and Hurricane Katrina in 2005 did considerable damage to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Further inland, climatic conditions become slightly cooler thanks to the lack of an oceanic influence and higher elevations. In the winter, these areas can receive colder temperatures, leading to frost or freeze events and occasional snowfall. Both Alabama and Mississippi get copious amounts of rainfall throughout the year, similarly to other southeastern states. On to ecology, Alabama and Mississippi share a lot of parallels and can be also discussed together. Both states share a rich and diverse ecological landscape shaped by their humid subtropical climates and unique geographical features. Each is home to vast forests, wetlands, rivers, and coastal ecosystems. The longleaf pine forests, once dominant across the southeast, are now an important focus for conservation efforts in both states, supporting a variety of species like the gopher tortoise and red cockaded woodpecker. Wetlands such as the Mobile Tensas River Delta in Alabama and the Mississippi Delta are crucial for biodiversity, providing habitat for migratory birds, alligators, and countless fish species. The Gulf Coast of both states supports important marine ecosystems with seagrass beds, estuaries, and barrier islands contributing to fisheries and protecting coastal communities from storms. This ecological richness makes both Alabama and Mississippi critical to the overall environmental health of the southeastern United States. On the human geography, let's start by talking about demography. Alabama and Mississippi are quite similar in this category, but have some distinguished differences. As of 2023, Alabama has a population of a little over 5.1 million residents, which has gradually increased in the last half century. But the state hasn't seen the growth of other bordering southern states such as Georgia and Florida. In terms of racial makeup, Alabama is a majority white state with 63.1%, and blacks make up the largest minority group at 25.6%, the fifth highest of any U.S. state. Hispanics, Native Americans, and Asians make up 5.3%, 2.2%, and 2% of the population respectively. Ethnically, Alabama has mostly European ancestral groups, including American, Irish, English, German, and Scot-Irish. However, the American identification are Alabamians who most likely are English or Scot-Irish and have been there for multiple generations. As of 2023, Mississippi has a total population of 2,939,690, 2.2 million less than Alabama, and a 0.7% decrease from 2020 and a 0.5% decrease from 2010. Unlike the rest of the South, Mississippi has been struggling to grow in population due to socioeconomic issues such as lack of suitable work, educational assets, healthcare, and poverty. Racially, Mississippi is a majority white state with 55.4%, and the largest minority group is blacks at 36.4%, the highest percentage of any U.S. state. Hispanics, Asians, and Native Americans all make up less than 5% of the population each. Similarly to Alabama, Mississippi's largest ethnic groups are Americans of English, Scot-Irish, and Irish ancestry. But some parts of the state have unique differences, such as Hancock County along the Gulf Coast, which has a high percentage of French Creoles. Urbanization patterns in Alabama and Mississippi contrast from other more populated southern states, as both have very large cities. Alabama's largest city is Huntsville, with a population of 221,000. This city has grown considerably in the last half century thanks to its economic opportunities, scenic landscape, and a low cost of living. Second in city population is Montgomery, the state capital, with nearly 197,000, followed by Birmingham with around 76 less residents, then Mobile, Alabama's major Gulf Coast and port city, and Tuscaloosa rounding out the top 5. Alabama is connected by several interstates, including I-10, an east-west cross-country interstate, I-20, another east-west interstate, I-22, I-59, and I-85, along with multiple U.S. and state highways. The Port of Mobile is the 11th largest seaport in the United States. Mississippi's largest city and capital is Jackson, with nearly 146,000 residents. However, this has decreased considerably in the last 40 years as the city hit a population high of 203,000 in 1980. Gulfport, located on the Gulf Coast, has around 73,000 residents and has grown more considerably. Rounding out the top 5 are South Haven, Hattiesburg, and Biloxi. In terms of transportation, Mississippi has multiple interstates traversing through it, including cross-country I-10, I-20, I-22, I-55, I-59, and multiple U.S. and state highways. An interesting tidbit is that it's legal to drink beer in a moving vehicle in Mississippi just as long as the driver's blood alcohol level doesn't exceed 0.8. Economically, the Deep South has historically been poorer than the northern states, but compared to the current larger southern states, Alabama and Mississippi nowadays lag behind them. Alabama has a state GDP of $243 billion and a per capita income of around $50,000 a year, near the bottom of the rankings nationwide. Still, Alabama's economy is diverse, with key industries including manufacturing, aerospace, healthcare, and agriculture. The state is known for producing cars, steel, and chemicals, and its aerospace sector is driven by companies like Airbus and Boeing. Alabama also has a strong agricultural base, with cotton, peanuts, and poultry among its leading products. In recent years, the state has seen growth in tech and biomedical industries, especially in cities like Birmingham and Huntsville, helping to modernize its economy and attract new investment. Several notable companies are headquartered in Alabama, including Regions Financial Corporation, one of the largest full-service providers of consumer and commercial banking, Protective Life Corporation, a major insurance and financial services company, Altec Industries, a leading equipment and service provider for the electric utility, telecommunications, and contractor markets, and Hibbett Sports, a sporting goods retailer. Mississippi has a state GDP of around $141 billion and a per capita income of $48,000 a year, one of the lowest nationwide. Before the Civil War, Mississippi was the 5th wealthiest state in the nation thanks to its slave-labored agricultural and cotton industry, but today it ranks as the poorest. Mississippi's current economy is rooted in agriculture, manufacturing, and energy production. The state is a leading producer of cotton, poultry, and catfish, with agriculture playing a significant role in rural areas. Manufacturing is also a key sector, with industries like shipbuilding, automotive, and furniture production contributing to economic growth. The state also has a growing energy sector, particularly in natural gas and oil extraction. Additionally, tourism and gaming along the Gulf Coast, especially in cities like Biloxi, contribute to the state's revenue. Mississippi does face challenges in income levels and employment, but efforts in education and workforce development aim to strengthen its economy. Mississippi is home to several prominent companies, including Cal-Maine Foods, the largest producer and distributor of fresh eggs in the U.S., Sanderson Farms, a major poultry producer and one of the largest in the country, Ingalls Shipbuilding, a key player in the shipbuilding industry, specializing in naval ships for the U.S. Navy, and PV Electronics, a leading manufacturer of musical instruments and professional audio equipment. On to geopolitics, both Alabama and Mississippi have complicated political histories. Alabama's first presidential election was the 1820 election, when the state gave its electoral votes to lone Democratic Republican candidate James Monroe. And in 1824, it gave its electoral votes to losing candidate Andrew Jackson, who was a Democrat Republican at the time. Then in 1828, Alabama gave its electoral votes to winner Andrew Jackson, who was the first elected Democrat president. From then until the Civil War, Alabama voted exclusively for Democrats. In 1868, when Alabama was admitted back into the Union following the Civil War, the state gave its electoral votes to winning Republican Ulysses S. Grant, and again in 1872. But from 1876 all the way to the 1940s, the state voted for Democratic candidates in all the presidential elections. This streak was broken in the 1948 election, when the state gave its electoral votes to third-party Dixiecrat candidate and segregationist Strom Thurmond. During the 1950s and 1960s, Alabama voted primarily for Democrats and third-party candidates. For example, in 1960, the state split its 11 electoral votes between Harry F. Byrd, a Democratic segregationist who wasn't even running for president, and John F. Kennedy. In 1964, Alabama gave its electoral votes to Republican Barry Goldwater, the first time since 1872. But in the very next election, it gave its electoral votes to independent segregationist and Alabama Governor George Wallace. Since the 1970s, Alabama slowly started to vote for more Republican candidates. In the last presidential election where a Democrat won the state was in 1976, when its electoral votes went to winning candidate Jimmy Carter. Nowadays, Alabama is seen as a safe red state in presidential elections, and former president and Republican candidate Donald Trump is projected to win it. In terms of the U.S. Senate, Alabama has 2 Republican senators, Tommy Tuberville and Katie Britt, and in the House of Representatives, 6 Republicans and 1 Democrat. On the state level, Alabama has a Republican governor, Kay Ivey, who became governor in 2017 after Governor Robert Bentley resigned, and was officially elected in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. In addition, Ivey is the oldest serving governor of any U.S. state, being 80 years old. Mississippi's first presidential election was also the 1820 election, when the state's electoral votes went to lone Democratic Republican candidate James Monroe. Mississippi took a similar trajectory to Alabama during the mid-19th century, with the state mostly voting for Democratic candidates, except in the 1840 election, when the state gave its electoral votes to Whig winner William Henry Harrison. During the Civil War, Mississippi didn't vote in the 1864 election due to being in the Confederacy at the time. But, unlike Alabama, Mississippi wasn't restored back into the Union for the 1868 election, so the state's electors couldn't vote. By 1872, Mississippi was able to vote again and gave its electoral votes to Republican Ulysses S. Grant. Since the 1876 election, Mississippi voted identically to Alabama, initially giving its electoral votes to Democrats until the 1940s, to third-party candidates Strom Thurmond, Harry F. Byrd, and George Wallace in 1948, 1960, and 1968, and slowly becoming a Republican stronghold after 1976. Today, Mississippi is seen as a safe red state, and Donald Trump is projected easily to win for 2024. In the U.S. Senate, Mississippi has 2 Republican senators, Roger Wicker and Cindy Hyde-Smith, and in the House of Representatives, 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat. On the state level, Mississippi has a Republican governor, Tate Reeves, who was elected in 2019 and re-elected in 2023. Alabama and Mississippi are unique southern states with rich cultural heritages. Both states do have socioeconomic problems, which will likely continue, but these issues have gotten better, especially during the last 25 years. That concludes today's State Comparison Series episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you would like to leave your feedback, please do so in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed geography, you found the right channel, so be sure to subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home, to view more videos. Until next time!